PAC members, and welcome to the March PAC Appreciation event. I'm so excited to be joining you this month. For those who don't know, hi, I'm Jocelyn Yadian. I'm with the Dog Aging Project team. I'm the social media specialist at Texas A&M. So if you haven't already, go find us. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and of course, YouTube. So thank you for joining us today. I look forward to getting to know everyone here and at the dog park. Now, we've had a very busy month. And for those who are subscribed to our newsletter, you already got a sneak peek into our March goodness. But if you're not subscribed to our newsletter, well, it's okay. You still have time. You can head over to our website at dogagingproject.org, scroll to the bottom, and sign up. When you sign up for our monthly newsletters, you'll be receiving updates as well as being in the know of all our recent happenings at the Dog Aging Project, because our team is constantly working on new things coming your way, so you have lots to look forward to in the months ahead. Now, for today's event, our team will be answering questions at the dog park, which is our community forum exclusively for PAC members. So PAC members, if you're on right now, make sure to head over to the dog park and sign in. Make sure to enter any questions you may have, and don't forget to enter our prize giveaway, where you have a chance to win some Dog Aging Project stickers. Now, speaking of March goodness, we are celebrating International Women's Day all month long. Yes, we know technically the day itself was March 8th, but at the Dog Aging Project, we're super fortunate to have many accomplished women leading our team to scientific excellence. So many, in fact, we extended it for a whole month because we wanted to take the time to say thank you for all their incredible work. We also hope that by profiling the talented women on our team, we encourage gender parity in science, break the bias that may make it difficult for women to move ahead professionally, and empower young women to pursue their passion in science. So join us in celebrating many contributions and achievements of the women on our team by liking and leaving comments on their profiles. We posted them on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And stay tuned for more staff spotlights, because the Dog Aging Project team is a collaborative effort spanning over many academic institutions, and we're very proud of our team. So there will be lots of staff spotlights. Also, we had a wee bit of good cheer for St. Patrick's Day. We invited our PAC members, as well as many dog lovers out there, to post their good doggos decked out in green for St. Patty's. We had lots of participation, but hands down, our PAC members have the best photos. And if you'd like to see these photos, make sure to head over to our socials, because these pups are simply too cute to pinch. Now, you may have seen the Dog Aging Project reach a big milestone with their publication in the scientific journal, Nature. We'll be using the scientific manuscript as a jumping off point to revisit our research goals and methods and how you can help. This month, Eric is speaking with our Dog Aging Project co-founder, Dr. Daniel Promislow, for a project update. So whether you've been with us from the start or joined us recently, this session will have something new and interesting for everyone. So take it away, Eric.
Hi, everyone. Eric is actually behind the scenes making all of this possible. I'm Daniel Promislow, and I am really delighted to be here. And I'm going to give you some of the exciting news that's coming out of the Dog Aging Project. So let me start by sharing my screen. I'm going to show you some slides. So I want to talk just a little bit about how we got to where we are and where we are now and where we're going. So all of this started way back when, in 2007, when this paper came out about size in dogs. I saw this paper and about the genetics of size in dogs, and I got excited about the possibility that we could also figure out the genetics of aging in dogs. And of course, one of the really striking things that so many of us know is that the large breed dogs, as beautiful as they are, don't get to live as long typically as the small breed dogs, like this Great Dane on the right compared to the Chihuahua on the left. So at the time I was at the University of Georgia, and I wanted to find a collaborator because I didn't know a lot about veterinary science. And so I reached out to the University of Georgia Veterinary School, and they put me in touch with Kate Creevy. And Dr. Creevy responded with the following email. Hello, Dr. Promislow. I understand you're trying to look at longevity in dogs. I'm not entirely sure how or whether I can help, but I'd certainly be interested to hear more about it. And as many of you know, without Dr. Creevy, the Dog Aging Project wouldn't exist. She helped a whole lot. She made it all possible. So Dr. Creevy and I started working together. And What I'm showing you here is a screenshot from Google Scholar. So just like you can search for anything on Google, there's a special webpage on that's part of Google where you can search for scientific papers, and it will find those papers. One of the things it will tell you about each paper is how many times some other scientific paper has cited that. So here's the list of the first 4 of my many publications ranked by the number of times that they've been cited. The number 1, which goes back to when I was a graduate student in 1990, has been cited 1,200 times. But right up there, published much more recently in 2011, so now just over a decade ago, with Dr. Creevy, this paper has been cited by more than 300 other research papers. And in our world, that's a lot. So this paper turned out to be a really impactful paper, and it got the ball rolling for myself and Dr. Creevy, pictured here in USA Today, to start working together. And this is my dog Frisbee, who at the time was just a young dog. She's now 16 years old and still going strong. So what began with just Dr. Creevy and me working together is now a team of almost 90 people working behind the scenes, and more than 30,000 of you actually being the community scientists who, through your generosity, share your data with us to allow us to understand aging in dogs. So it's been an exciting ride, and this is some of the team. In fact, there are a lot of people who aren't pictured here. So we've really built this huge team. You saw a couple of others today. There are so many people who are working behind the scenes to make the Dog Aging Project possible. So just a reminder, and here's Frisbee in her younger days, and more of what she looks like today. She spends a lot of time sleeping. She's an old pup, but a happy one. So the 2 overarching goals of the Dog Aging Project are, first of all, to understand the genes and the environmental factors that determine healthy aging in companion dogs. Just like when you go to the dog park, there are big dogs and small dogs, long-haired and short-haired dogs, everything varies. So too, there's huge variation in how long dogs live and how healthy they are into their old age. We want to identify the genetic and environmental factors that influence how long a dog is going to live and how well it's going to do in its old age, and also to understand whether there are things that we can do to maximize the potential of each dog to live its longest, healthiest lifespan. So the Dog Aging Project is made up of a few different groups, just to remind you. So the first group is the Dog Aging Project Pack. Anybody who nominates their dog and then completes the first year health and life experience survey becomes a member of the pack. And that one-time completion of the survey gives you lifetime membership. If you never do anything else, your dog is still a member of the pack for its whole life. Of course, we hope that every year you will fill out an update so that we can keep track of how your pup is doing as it grows old. Some individuals will also provide electronic medical records. And for those that do, there's a possibility that they will be enrolled in one of our other sampled cohorts. One of those cohorts is called the Foundation cohort. And these are dogs who will receive cheek swabs, and you will swab your dog's cheeks, send the swab back to us, and then we will sequence the dog's DNA. And our plan is to have at least 8,500 dogs join this. And so far, we're about halfway there. So it's pretty exciting. We've already returned a lot of genetic data analysis to many of you who have swabbed your dog's cheek. The sampled group we call Precision. This is up of 1,000 dogs. And as you can see, we're over halfway to completing recruitment for that group. And these individuals are going to receive a kit in the mail that we will send you, that you will then bring to your regular veterinarian, and they will collect blood samples, urine sample, fecal sample, hair sample. Those are sent back to us, and we then do biological analysis on those samples to learn a lot more about what's happening to the dog as it ages. And ultimately, we hope to be able to predict how long a dog is going to live, maybe even predict or diagnose diseases. And ultimately, we hope to learn new ways to treat and prevent diseases of aging. And then finally, we have an intervention cohort. Our ultimate goal is to enroll 580 dogs in that group. And here we've just started. These are dogs that are part of a placebo-controlled trial of a drug called rapamycin, which in laboratory studies has shown that it can dramatically increase healthy lifespan in mice, and we want to find out if it can increase healthy lifespan in dogs. So we're well on our way to building these cohorts, and we already have collected more than enough data to start publishing scientific papers about what you have told us about your dogs. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that shortly. So much of what we do is about reaching out. This presentation that I'm giving today is about reaching out to the public. The Dog Aging Project is really you, the Dog Aging Project participant, those of you who are filling out surveys, who are sharing your awesome stories about your dogs and how they're doing, whether they're puppies or old dogs, and how they're doing as they age. So much of what we do is for you, and we want to share what we're doing with you, and not only through the dog park, but also just in the past couple of months, we've had stories in People magazine. For those of you who are older humans and maybe read the AARP magazine, there's a story in there about what we can learn about aging in humans from our dogs. But we're also excited to reach out to the scientific community, and not just the American scientific community, but the global scientific community. And so I'm really excited to tell you today about a paper that we published in February in the journal Nature. Nature is one of the few of the very top, most highly cited journals in the world. It's published in England, but read by scientists all around the world. And so this is the cover of the issue that the Dog Aging Project team published in February, sharing the excitement, the story about the Dog Aging Project with scientists all around the world. Here's the first page of that study. It's called an open science study of aging in companion dogs. And you can see Dr. Creevy as the first author. I also want to point out that the authors include myself and a couple of colleagues and the Dog Aging Project Consortium, which is an author list too long to mention here, but includes many of the scientists who are working behind the scenes and who are part of every paper that comes out of our study. We can determine the metrics, how many people are looking at this paper, and you can see that it's been accessed almost 7,000 times. It's been tweeted about so many times that it's in the top 99%. So only 1% or less than about 1%, in fact, fewer than 1% of papers from Nature get more attention than ours got. So we're ranked 640th out of 340,000. So we're at the very, very top of papers in Nature getting lots of attention. So this is awesome. And it's because of you and because of the data that you've shared with us. Here are a few pictures from that publication in Nature. So just like I just told you about the DAP pack and the foundation, precision, and so on, we tell the readers of Nature about that. And here is where all our participants are. Each one of these little purple dots represents 5 participants. And you can see that there are dots in every state in the United States, including Alaska and Hawaii. So we are everywhere. This graphic shows the number of dogs in each age group and size group. So if we just pick 12-year-old dogs, for example, we've got males on the right and females on the left. And you can see if we look down, cast our eyes down, we've got about 800 females that are 12 years old and about 800 males that are 12 years old. And the colors represent the size classes. So within the females, we've got dogs that are less than 5 kilograms or about 12 pounds, all the way up to dogs that are more than 40 kilos or more than about 100 pounds. So we've got dogs of all ages and all sizes. Just a little bit about the cycle. So there's a figure in the paper that describes this. Those of you who have already gone through the cycle know it, that there's, first of all, public outreach and recruitment to share the story with the public so you know about it. People then enroll, filling out that health and life experience survey. And of course, we hope that everybody will complete their annual update. That's really important so we can track how your dogs are changing as they age. The veterinarians who you visit and who help us gather data are an incredibly important part of this study. And of course, there's data and sample collections. And the data and the samples then are provided to other scientists. We release all the data, and that's an important part of what we do. I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a minute. Publications and presentations like these are important. And then returning the data to you, the participant. Just as you share data with us, we will share our analysis of your data with you when we publish it. We're also building ancillary or additional studies on top of this really powerful foundation that we've built. So we like to think that the Dog Aging Project is now an engine for growth and innovation, so we can keep on doing new and exciting things. We really are interested in the environment in which each dog lives. Just as human health is impacted by the environment in which we live, so too do we believe that the dog's environment will be. There are dogs that will spend a lot of time in the outdoors, like my old pup Frisbee, and other dogs that are really urban and who spend most of their time in an urban environment. What are the consequences for that? We don't have a lot of data on that yet from scientific studies, but we, the Dog Aging Project, will be able to collect things like socioeconomic variables. Does the dog live in a relatively wealthy neighborhood or a less wealthy neighborhood? Are they close to high levels of the kinds of gases that come off of tailpipes of trucks on the interstate? Or are they closer to a wooded environment with not so much pollution? How walkable is the neighborhood, and so on. So we're collecting all of those data. As I mentioned, we're collecting lots of physical samples, and this is a figure from the Nature paper where we tell people about what we're collecting, not just the cheek swabs for DNA, but blood samples for molecular biology, urine samples, a fecal sample, hair clippings, and we can learn all kinds of things. We can learn about the bacteria in the gut, about all the small molecules in the blood. From the hair, we can even measure stress hormones to figure out how stressed that dog might be. So much we can learn from these samples. And I should mention that we're not sampling everybody at this point, only because these things are expensive and our funding doesn't allow us to do everybody, but we're continuing to try and raise more funds so that we can do more science and get even more people involved in this. So the title of this paper is an open science study of aging and companion dogs. And I want to underscore what I mean by open science. So everything that we do is transparent, is shared with the community. So all the data that we collect, aside from anything that is about the human privacy, so your own private information will never be released to anybody, including your address, your name, your phone number. We won't tell anybody about that. That's in a lockbox. But all the dog information is made publicly available so that more people all around the world can do more science. It's so critical that the data that we collect is used to the maximum potential to discover how and why dogs age and how to help them age in a better, healthier way. So the way we do that is actually through an institute in Boston called the Broad Institute at MIT and Harvard. they have something called Terra that they created, which is a computer workspace that sits on top of Google. And so anybody, scientists, journalists, even the public, can apply for access to our work, to our data. We are in days about to release the first curated data set. So this is the 2020 data, the first year of data through Terra, and scientists around the country, around the world, will start doing science and publishing papers about the Dog Aging Project, just as people on the team are doing. So we're very excited about this important step in making sure that everything we do is open and transparent, and that everybody can do science with the data that we are collecting. So what have we found so far? I'm just going to tell you a few really quick stories. People all across our team have been analyzing data and writing papers. We're starting to submit papers. It's really an exciting time in the study, having spent years building the foundation, building the infrastructure. We're now writing and submitting scientific papers. So just a few things that we found. We can actually predict how old a dog is, even if we don't know, just from a small blood sample. From that blood sample, we remove the white cells. Those are the cells that help us mount an immune response when we get sick. And within each of those cells is DNA. And we can measure something about that DNA, which is called the methylome. And that has to do with how that DNA is affected by a certain chemical group called a methyl group. And that pattern changes as we age. And it changes in ways that turn out to be predictable and associated with age. So what is this figure showing you? And I should say, this is work done by a former graduate student from my lab, Kelly Jin, and a graduate student at Oregon State University. So here we're looking at the observed age. Each point here represents a dog whose age we know. And these were all dogs that came into the veterinary school at Texas A&M. And then our prediction based on this pattern in the DNA. And you can see that we can do a really good job of predicting how old a dog is based on its methylome. And we're excited to do more of this and see if we can not only predict how old a dog is, but how well that dog is aging. Does it look older than it should for its age, or maybe younger than we thought it would be? Does it look younger than it actually is for its age? And what can we learn about its health from that? So we're very excited to keep on doing more of this work. This is being led by my colleague Noah Snyder-Mackler at Arizona State University. We've also been looking at the data that you shared with us about physical activity. So for example, you told us how much time your pup spends outside every day on average. And what you can see here, this is the predicted duration from our statistical model of your data as a function of age. And you can see that it declines with age. It levels off at late age. That might be for a couple of different reasons, but the main point I want to make here is that, as we would expect, dogs are spending less time outside as they get older. And like Frisbee, my pup, probably spending more time sleeping on the living room floor. But we found some other really interesting things too. So the colors here show neighborhoods. So this orangey red color is rural, the green is suburban, and the blue is urban. And you can see there's not much difference between urban and suburban, but the rural dogs at almost all ages seem to spend about half an hour more per day outside. Maybe not so surprising. It's easier to just open the door for a dog who lives in a rural area and let them run. One of the big surprises we found was the following. So now what you're looking at is the colors represent owner age. And you can see here that it goes from youngest to oldest. And again, the same variable of duration in hours spent outside, that dogs of older owners tend to spend more time outside. Initially, we were really surprised by this, but then we thought about it and thought, well, it might make sense because as we get older, many of us have more flexibility in our work schedules, and eventually many of us retire, have more time to spend taking our dogs outside. So we're excited to dig down a little bit deeper, maybe ask some more questions of you, the participants, to get a better understanding of what's going on. And then one final result I'll share with you. We also measured a score from a new survey that we gave you, that's a different survey from the Health and Life Experience Survey that we call the Canine Social and Learned Behavior Survey. And what we found is that as dogs get older, their scores tend to increase as they experience cognitive changes. But what was quite striking is not only that we don't see dramatic cognitive changes in dogs until they're 11 or 12 years old, but also that there isn't much difference between the large, the medium, and the small dogs. Why is that a surprise? Well, as I already mentioned at the beginning, large breed dogs are quite a bit shorter lived than small breed dogs. And so we might expect that the large breed dogs would show earlier patterns of aging compared to the small breed dogs. But in the case of this particular measure, at least, of cognition, large and small dogs look identical to each other. So we're really excited to dig down a little deeper here and find out what's going on. So as is so often the case with really exciting science, we ask a question, and rather than getting a clear answer, it leads us to ask more, deeper, and more precise and interesting questions. So one question leads to more newer questions, and that's what keeps science going. So what can you do to help? Well, first of all, the fact that you're here is just the best thing you can do to be a part of our project. If you haven't already joined the Dog Aging Project, please join. We welcome all dogs, all ages, all breeds, all sizes, males, females. Please join the project. All you have to do is go to this website, dogagingproject, all one word, .org. Go to dogagingproject.org and click on the Nominate Your Dog button. You'll be invited to create your own password-protected portal. And again, we will protect all of your personal information. We will never share that with anybody. And then tell us about your dog, and we can turn your information into science. It doesn't cost anything, and it's all a nonprofit study supported by the National Institute on Aging. So carry out those surveys. As we give you more tasks, complete those too. It allows us to do more cool science. And right now, most of the data are in the hands of graduate students, veterinary students, and postdoctoral fellows. These are early career researchers. So your data are enabling these young scientists to grow their careers. It's very exciting. Share this information with your friends, whether through Instagram or Twitter or Facebook or TikTok or whatever your favorite social media. Talk to your friends at dinner parties, email them, tell them to join the Dog Aging Project. The more people join, the more we can learn. And finally, to finish up, I just want to thank the funders that make this all possible, primarily the National Institutes of Health, and in particular, the National Institute on Aging, which is part of the National Institutes of Health, and Ron Kohensky, Francesca Macchiarini, Manuel Moreau, who should be listed here, and Felipe Sierra, who's since retired, all of whom have really encouraged us along the way to do this. Other nonprofit foundations, as well as some corporations, have provided small amounts of money to support the meetings that we have for our team. And I should note that all of the support that we get, whether through private donors, through corporate donors, or through the NIH, goes directly to doing more science. And it's all a nonprofit study. We have advisory boards that are independent that help make sure that we are doing the best possible science that we can, and that we're always, number one, keeping the safety, health, and welfare of the dog at the fore. With that, I just want to thank you again for watching the seminar today, and feel free to reach out to us on social media or to come to the dogagingproject.org website and check us out. Thanks so much for joining us. So I do see that there are a few questions. So first of all, question from Jack. how will the Dog Aging Project address the role of raw feeding and diet in general on canine health span? Beautiful question. Really, we really care a lot about that. We know from laboratory studies in different animals and even from human studies that diet is a really important factor that influences healthy aging. For example, in laboratory studies, we've learned that reducing intake of certain ingredients, certain nutrients can increase lifespan. There are lots of questions in this community of dog lovers about what the ideal diet is. We don't yet know about the long-term impact on aging of a raw food diet versus a homemade cooked food diet versus a diet of either store-bought canned food or store-bought kibble or dried food. But the good thing is, one of the parts of the questionnaire, the Health and Life Experience Survey that we give all of you, is asking about the diet that you provide to your dog. And so as we follow these animals over time, we will learn how raw food diet, whether store-bought or homemade or kibble or whatever, impacts the long-term health of each dog. So we don't have answers yet. We're still just in the first phase of analyzing the data. But as we follow these dogs over the coming 3, 5, even 10 years, we will begin to learn just how diet influences the dog. The other thing that I would say for each of you who are wondering, well, what should I do now? What do we know? What's the best decision for my dog now, depending on the breed, the size, the age? What I would say is reach out to your veterinarian. Your veterinarian knows your dog well and knows a lot about diet, and have that conversation with them, get guidance from them. Second question from Ted. How is it that smaller breeds live longer? It seems to go against most mammal trends. That's exactly right. In fact, when I was a graduate student in the 1980s at the University of Oxford, my PhD was on patterns of lifespan across species of mammals. So I was collecting data in everything from the smallest mice and voles and bats to elephants and hippos and whales. And in general, large mammals, large species, tend to live much longer than small species. There are some interesting exceptions, like those bats that I mentioned, which can be the smallest bat, which might be the size of a mouse, can live for 40 or 50 years. But in general, large species are long-lived. Goes the opposite in dogs. And in fact, there's some evidence in humans, although it's pretty messy in humans, that in general, there are certain diseases that are that larger people, taller people are more prone to, but it's a small effect. Why do large breed dogs live so much shorter on average than small breed dogs? Some of you are maybe on this call have the good fortune of having a giant breed dog that's very old, and I congratulate you. But on average, they're shorter lived. We don't yet know the answer. One possibility is that paper that I showed you that inspired this entire thing back in 2007, that science paper that was published by Nathan Sutter, who was in Elaine Ostrander's group. And Dr. Sutter and Dr. Ostrander and their colleagues found that a gene called insulin growth factor 1, or IGF-1, explains a large amount of the variation between the big breeds and the small breeds. We actually have a lot of data from laboratory studies that IGF-1 is also associated with lifespan. So in the coming years, with the 10,000 plus dogs that we're going to be sequencing, and as we follow the health of those dogs, we hope to answer that question. Is it IGF-1, that gene, that explains why it is that large breed dogs are shorter lived? We don't know. The last thing I'll mention is that there are certainly some diseases that large breed dogs are much more prone to than small breed dogs, like certain kinds of cancer. Whether that explains everything or not, we don't know. But again, we'll be collecting those data to figure that out. And then, how can my dog join the cohorts? So first of all, right now, we have limited numbers just because of our limit in funding. If any of you know a very wealthy donor who would like to donate millions of dollars to the Dog Aging Project to expand the cohort sizes, please have them reach out to me. I would love to talk to them. Again, all of the funding goes to the science. It doesn't go to our salaries. It's just supporting good science. So we'd love to increase the size of those cohorts. Right now, the way that you get enrolled into one of those cohorts is, first of all, if you upload an electronic medical record, you become eligible. And then it's pretty much random, depending on where in the country you live and what kind of dog you have and so on. So we would love to sign up everybody. And we are about to submit our renewal for another 5 years of funding. That's due in the spring. And we will certainly be asking for more funding so that we can sign up more of you to join the sampled cohorts. But I want to stress that no matter what the data that you share with us, if you are part of the PAC and you're sharing the health and life experience survey data, that is the core foundation of all the science that we do. And even that alone is a game changer in helping us to understand how and why dogs age. So it's all really important. Could you discuss the possible long-term application of this information to human health? I'm sure NIA, the National Institute on Aging, is sponsoring the research for that purpose. So yes, the National Institute on Aging is really interested in what they call translational research. Translational research is research that's done on non-human species, but that can eventually apply to human species. And so there are countless ways in which we believe what we learn about the dogs in our homes could teach us about our own health. And I'll just give you one example of something that we're interested in looking at. I was at a meeting in December with several other of our colleagues from the Dog Aging Project. Audrey Ruppel was there, Eleanor Carlson, others. And this was a meeting about companion animals as sentinels for cancer and aging in humans. By sentinels, it's like the canary in the coal mine. So imagine that we discover that there are certain dogs that seem prone to certain kinds of cancer in certain environments. Because dogs, sadly, are so much shorter lived than we are, we can learn that much more quickly about environmental risk factors for cancer. If there's an environmental risk factor that we discover that increases the risk of cancer in dogs, it's possible that that same risk factor, maybe a particular pollutant that we find in the air, will also have an impact on the cancer risk in people. And that is obviously something that we would immediately look for if we find that there's something that seems to be increasing risk of cancer, even by a little bit in your dogs. We will then ask, well, is that also true in humans? And so this goes for everything that we are studying. We've already started mapping genes to traits in dogs. And so if we discover a particular gene associated with some disease in dogs, we can then look in a very targeted way at whether that gene might also be impacting the risk of disease in humans. So there are many ways in which there's enormous translational potential for the potential for translating what we learn about both the biology and the environmental factors that influence aging in dogs to impact what we know about humans. So thank you so much for your comments, your questions. Thank you for joining us today. I really was happy to share some of our good news with all of you, and please don't hesitate to reach out back to us if you have any other questions or comments. And with that, I'm delighted to hand it back to Jocelyn.
All right, that concludes our March PAC Appreciation event. Thank you so much for joining us today. A huge thank you to Dr. Daniel Promislow, as well as Eric Glint, for sharing their knowledge and giving us the updates on the Dog Aging Project. That was super insightful, and hopefully this encourages you to get more involved in our study by participating at the dog park and sharing this video with a friend. Because the best part of our project is you guys, our PAC members. You put community in community science, and we couldn't do this without you, truly. Speaking of our PAC members who are currently on, watching, and participating in today's event, you all are awesome. Thank you so much. Now, if you haven't already, make sure to head over to the dog park and enter our PAC appreciation giveaway. And we will announce the winners at the dog park, as well as answer any remaining questions you may have today. So head over to the dog park. Speaking of the dog park, a quick shout out to Eric again. He's the dog father of the dog park, our tech guru behind the scenes, and he put this wonderful event together. So yay, Eric. For those who are still on, put a clapping emoji in the chat box. Now, really quickly before we go, we want to share some quick updates. We'll be focusing on canine cognition in the next few months. So stay tuned for some upcoming blog posts, maybe some posts on our socials. Just stay tuned and don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter if you haven't already. Now, feel free to share this video and like it, right? Give it a thumbs up. And thank you again for joining us